thank you so much, Frances, for joining me today. Really appreciate it. Super excited to talk about your new book, Repotting Your Life, which is behind me right there. Just so relevant to everyone right now. So happy. Thank you for joining me.
Well, it's an absolute pleasure, and thank you very much indeed for all the product placement and all the kind words, Suzanne. Yeah, it couldn't be more true. Repotting your life. What's it all about? Well, let me tell you my story so that we can wrap a bit of context around this, and then we can talk about the issues involved. I mean, I hit what I would call the deep middle age, or the springtime of my senility, as a lot of people do. The end of work, empty nest, end of a relationship. Sometimes people hit the end of the road because, something happens to them. Something happens that is life-changing. We look at the moment at the poor people in the Ukraine. One minute you're living in a nice warm home with a lovely job, and the next minute you're a refugee looking for somewhere to live. So, the necessity to move your life along happens in many different ways. But in my case, it was a little bit more nebulous than that. And I think this is what happens. Rarely do people have such draconian, radical, desperate sort of changes in their life as, you yourself have been through, and the poor people in the Ukraine have been through. But often people just feel a bit that this isn't working anymore. This relationship isn't working. This situation isn't working. My life generally is the salt has lost its savor. And sometimes when you're feeling like that, sometimes something will happen, or a program will come up, or you'll hear something on the radio, or you'll read something in the newspaper or in the book, and it really hits home. And I was watching a gardening program on the television, and one of the gardening gurus was going around the garden, and there was this sort of potted plant, and it was all wilting and sad. It was still alive, but it looked really bedraggled and sad. And anyway, he said, "Oh dear, let's look at this." And he pulled this plant out of the pot, and it was pot bound, it was root bound. This is what happens when the plant has actually grown out of its pot. There's not enough nourishment within the soil, within the pot, to sustain and nurture the growth of that plant. And when that happens, the roots go round and round and round in a never-ending circle, trying to find the nutrients in the environment that they need, but they can't find them. It's no longer there. And I thought, he said, this plant is pot bound. If we don't repot it, this plant is going to die. I thought, what a metaphor for life. I need repotting. Anyway, after all sorts of various things, and we might go into what those things were, having a look at what I might want to do, I ended up going on an extraordinary program in Stanford University in California. It was a program that took 25 fellows from all over the world, people in deep middle age like me, from all different cultures, walks of life, whatever, cultures, languages, smacked us all together in a cohort in the most frighteningly demanding university in the whole world. It really is like the sort of the epicenter of Silicon Valley, and to see what would happen. And my first day there, as I was waiting to get sort of a registration plate and some books at the Graduate School of Business at Stanford, I noticed this little plaque in the garden before you get to the market square there, and it said, "Repotting, that's how you get new bloom. You must have a plan of accomplishment, and when that is achieved, you must be willing to start off again." So I thought, yeah, this is exactly where I'm supposed to be, to learn about starting again, whether you want to start off again, or whether you're obliged to start off again, or whether the world is telling you must start off again, how you go about that process. Because rarely do people want to start off again. It's tough, isn't it? You're used to doing certain things. You're used to the job. You're used to the way your life is, your situation, your comfort zone. And when you're catapulted out of it, things happen to you, or you just feel that it's no longer right for you. You have to find the wherewithal, the technique, and I would say the process of moving on and getting on with life in a new format. And that's what Repotting Your Life is all about.
And that's the thing, because you've had so many different lives, and I just wanted to mention, like, you were an interpreter at like the UN and United Nations, and and all these economic summits. And so I was just wondering, like, how many times over would you say you've actually started over a new leaf, if you'd like to say?
Well, as I say, started on modern linguist, international conference interpreter, professional cricket widow, writer, broadcaster. Then I ran a building company. Then I was director for a business development network, and then I was a fellow researching into longevity and extended life expectancy at Stanford. All of this, and I wanted to be a ballerina, says Wati, but unfortunately I had to give up. I sort of injured a groin muscle early on, and unfortunately it wasn't my own, and I think he now sings lead soprano in the Vienna Boys Choir. No, seriously, basically we've all got lots of different elements in our life. And here's the thing, when I was at Stanford, I ended up researching at the Center on Longevity there, because my real interest now in life is extended life expectancy, because here's the real issue that I really want to grapple with. Where a child born in the 1900s had a life expectancy of 70. A child born today will probably live to be 100, all things being equal. So that's 30 gifted years that we have. So the old models that we have of learn, earn, retire, go to school, college, university, get a qualification, earn a living, and then retire, and please pop your clogs before the money runs out, if you've not been provident, God help you. Those days have finished. We know we don't, unfortunately, have the institutions or the culture to deal with this 100-year life. And that is actually what I'm having a good look at in Repotting Your Life. We're going to have to try and find ways of managing these 30 gifted years so that they're 30 gifted years of meaningful, purposeful life, rather than 30 years of just being kept alive. And that means really that we'll have to sort of train ourselves in a different sort of mindset, tool set, and skill set. Sort of learning by rote is no longer really required in the way it was when I was a kid. Nowadays, all the information you want is on your iPhone. So we'll have to sort of start thinking in terms of managing our old health, wellness, and well-being, mental, physical, and spiritual, finding purpose, and that will mean often, I think, oscillating in and out of work and personal and professional development. And my big thing too is the importance of community. Have we not felt this, all of us, over COVID, Swati, like when we couldn't really see people, and how desperate we are to sort of to be in a community, a sort of a supportive community that helps us through the good times and the bad. So well-being and purpose and community, and trying to stitch those elements into a life of extended life expectancy to help us through all these transitions in life, because we will be called upon increasingly to manage these transitions. Nobody nowadays has a job for life. Even if you go into a profession like my three brothers, doctors, two of them eye surgeons. What they were learning 30 years ago is not what they're learning now. You have to employ new techniques. So even when you've got a vocational degree like medicine, things change. But most of us will not have the same job for life. Most of us won't have a job for life. So the flexibility, the curiosity, the wherewithal to deal with this constantly changing and volatile situation, these are the challenges for the 21st century. And as I say in Repotting Your Life, these are the challenges for which, as yet, we don't really have the culture and the institutions to deal with them. So we're going to have to find them for ourselves, for the time being.
Exactly. And I wanted to ask you this because obviously, like, my partner's father, he's 70 now. He's still working as a chef, on his feet all the time.
Good for him.
Yeah. Like he wants to. After that, he said when he retires, he's going to go volunteer in Vietnam and carry on working.
Fabulous.
And exactly. And I was just wondering, like, how much of this culture is here yet? I feel like it's not there yet. And that's the problem. So what can we do to kind of embrace this kind of new attitude? Because everyone is still like, if you're in France, you know what that's like. If you say pension age is at 70 or there'd be massive protest. So how do people get their mindset around the fact that it's not over at 65?
Well, this is it too. We have to get first of all, nobody's minimizing the fact that you do need good health to be able to keep going. And I'm not suggesting for a minute that everybody has to work, in paid employment till they fall off their perch. I mean, having a purposeful and meaningful life doesn't necessarily mean being engaged in paid employment. It's actually finding a purpose and meaningful activity for you. That can be looking after your garden, that can be helping a neighbor with her shopping, that can be really asking people if you want. It doesn't have to be stratospherically important. So that's number one. Number two is, here's the thing. We do become excessively tied up in our own, what I call our own paltry melodramas, our own miserable selves. And I thought that today when I was sort of thinking, gosh, energy prices are going up and it's horrific, and my bills will be going up to, how are we going to manage this? Then you look at these poor people in the Ukraine, refugees, children, it's -10 degrees, and you think, what can I get out of your own miserable mindset and think what you can do for some other people who are far worse off than you. And it's that kind of generosity of spirit, that kind of, it's not just me, there is a community out there. It doesn't have to be paid employment, it has to be a purpose. Even if it's get up in the morning and scrub your step, as they used to do up in Cheshire when I was a kid. You'd see these 80-year-old ladies, it would be 7 o'clock in the morning, you'd be going for a run or a jog or something, and they'd be cleaning. You think, why are you cleaning your, because it gives you purpose, something that gives you purpose. Now, okay, it can be as banal as that. Equally, when I talk about spiritual purpose, I don't necessarily mean orchestrated or traditional religion. I mean, things that genuinely give you pleasure, make you feel meaningful, and plugging into a wider community, understanding the needs of people other than yourself. I think that is key in this endeavor.
It's very true. Now, obviously, like, it's quite
because
difficult.
you do a lot of that, don't you? I mean, you
I
really
do.
do. I mean, you really, really, really do. I mean, here you're asking me, and I know what you do, all the charities you're involved in to help disabled people in cycling and sports and all the rest of it. I mean, and doesn't that give you meaning and purpose, the fact that you're helping other people, and it pays back to you too? It's not just one-sided traffic.
Yeah, 100%, because exactly, you can go into your head so easily and just think it's just me in this world sort of dealing with this, but it's not. And actually there's always someone worse off. So and so it definitely helps me keep focused and keep progressing in terms of trying to help other people, because it's true, it could be so much worse. So yes.
And I think the thing is, we can talk about these things, but what I try and set out in Repotting Your Life is a process, how you get out of the slough of despond, which we can all get into. Say you're made redundant. Say, I mean, I don't want to talk about the draconian issues going in the Ukraine, where you're just thrown out of your country. I mean, or you have to flee your country, or a terrible illness where all of a sudden life changes for you. Those are really extraordinary things to deal with. But I'm talking about the average person who maybe is made redundant, or a relationship ends, a divorce, a death. That will happen to everybody, death of family and friends, situation is that you have to move on from. And I try and set out a process, how you get your head around these things and how you move on. And I mean, one of the things I do talk about is we all have dear family and friends, key people in our lives. Well, most of us are lucky enough to have a few people like that. But when you're moving or trying to move from one situation to another, sometimes it's the power of what I call loose contacts, loose relationships in your network that are going to help you. If you want to learn something new or move into a different area of endeavor, probably the people you already know, they kind of know the people you know, and they know the things you know. And so it's at that point in time that you reach out to the widest possible community of people. And I have always found in my life, I don't know, Swati, whether you found this too, that when you just put stuff out there, you would be staggered where help comes from. When I was feeling sort of like that, as I say, the salt had lost its savor, I was sort of tired of my life in London. Well, at that point, my daughter decided that she was leaving her job in investment banking, having worked at, a great investment banking job for 5 years, and said, no, I've had enough of this now. I've learned what I want to learn. I'm going to move on. So sometimes the younger generation go, my God, when you've finished with something, when you think you've got the nurture and the nature that you can get out of that soil and that environment, you will move on. And at the same time, a great mate of mine, a Trinidadian friend of mine who's a judge, and he'd found this program in Stanford. He was very interested in stopping recidivism in prisons, helping prisoners who'd been incarcerated to get jobs after prison. He's sort of started a whole program called Remake to help sort of offenders get jobs and put them back on the straight and narrow. And he was telling me about this program in Stanford, and I thought, my God, that's exactly what I need. So when the student is ready, the master will appear. Once you've got your head around, it has to come from within. The spark has to come from within. To begin with, you think, it can't go on like this. I can't keep thinking like this. I can't keep saying, poor me. I can't keep going on like that. And then and you hope that there are decent people around you who are supportive. And I've always found that if you reach out, people are there to help you. They help you on the next steps,
Definitely.
so you and I could talk about all sorts of people with all sorts of problems, but that would take forever, because there are as many problems and situations of repotting as there are individuals in this life, whatever it is, whether it's losing weight, giving up alcohol, giving up cigarettes, giving up drugs, trying to move on from an illness, a terrible divorce, a horrible relationship, a toxic relationship, a bad job, bullying, whatever it is. It's reaching out to other people, those loose contacts, those support groups, or those individuals who help you through the first steps, and get yourself then a plan. And I sort of sketch out that plan in Repotting Your Life.
Yeah, and I wanted to ask you, what would you say is the easiest and most challenging aspect of repotting?
I think what tends to happen, especially as you get older, right? We all assimilate skills at which we're extremely good. Right. And we want to keep doing those things, because you don't want to go back to being the bottom of the class again. And this gets particularly difficult as you get older, where you have perhaps through endeavor and time sort of reached sort of a degree of expertise or excellence in a certain area. So to go back to the bottom of being the bottom of the class again in something is very challenging. And I have this concept called Pips. It particularly happens with men who define themselves more than women do by their job title, previously important people. And the fact that you were, do you know what? You were CEO of some company in 1066. It makes no difference now, mate. You don't know how to code, and that's what you're supposed to be doing, or you don't know how to sell a sandwich at Pret. So basically, it's what they call a beginner's mindset. It's like, have a beginner's mindset. I, during COVID, have started to learn bridge online, and I knew nothing about card play or anything. It's just so challenging to start doing new things. Since we've been allowed to sort of mix, I've started a salsa class, and I'm useless, but it gives me great joy because it's a completely different challenge for me. Easy for me to say, do you know what, I'll learn another language, but I already speak 4 or 5 languages. I know how to do that. For me, that wouldn't be a challenge. What is a challenge for me is to play cards or to dance or to do something like that. So it's basically acquiring the childlike humility, the fact that you don't be afraid to laugh at yourself or that other people laugh at you. Begin with a beginner's mindset. Otherwise, you'll never grow. If we all stick to knowing what we can do and the things we do well, we will never grow. That is the most challenging thing. That is the most challenging thing.
Yeah, you're right. Humility, definitely. Gosh.
Yeah, I mean, what would you find? Look, a lot of people come to me, and I love to mentor people who want to improve their public speaking skills.
Oh God.
Their platform skills, their public speaking. Some people would rather die than make a speech. Whereas
that is me.
Yeah, you see, but then you're not frightened about doing other things. We're all frightened about. I was frightened to go to the salsa lesson. I thought, I am just useless here. You start laughing at yourself. Other people are kind. People are supportive. They help you. They want you to succeed, and that helps. So I think it's that understanding that we're all rubbish at something, and we're all good at something, and just understand. That's why be humble. Laugh at yourself. Be humble, and start with a beginner's mindset. And that's the only way to grow. Bottom of the pile again. Start all over again.
Yeah, definitely. And gosh, and you've already mentioned this, which is it's always a bit more, it's always challenging when you have those things like financial or health or cultural constraints. So what would you recommend when there are like barriers like that, and you still want to repot?
Do you know what? There's no point minimizing those things. Those are absolutely true issues. Those are absolutely key issues in any. But the issue is, how do you want to repot? What do you want to do? It's what you personally want to do, not what your culture wants you to do, not what your mother wants you to do, your parents want you to do, the job wants you to do. It's up to you to do that. It's up to you to find the path that you want to take, not the path that the culture into which you were born, or the family into which you were born, or the profession into which you were born tells you should be doing. It's finding that courage, and sometimes it only comes later in life, because for a lot of our lives we are, I wouldn't say bullied, but it's kind of dragooned. Oh, you're a clever girl, you do this. You're a clever boy, you do that. Oh, or that isn't a job for girls, is it? Or that isn't the sort of thing that a girl like you does. It's fighting. It's actually having the courage to fight against those preconceived ideas. Money is a big issue. That it has to be said too. It's all very well pontificating about doing this and that and the other. But you know what? A lot of what you can do to change things doesn't cost anything. Listening to reading a good book, listening to great radio and podcasts, finding stuff online, access to the internet, these things are widely available. So it's really trying to find within yourself that spark. You've got to hit that, as they say in Alcoholics Anonymous, I believe. It's when people hit rock bottom that say, I've got to seek help and get out of here.
Yeah.
It's when you find within yourself, I just can't put up with this anymore. I really can't put up with this anymore. And that is actually an inflection point, a pivotal point at which you will probably find the courage and the guts to do something about it. We hear all the time about women who've been abused and they put up with it for 30 years. And then all of a sudden, no more, no more. I don't particularly want to go down that route, but I mean, those are repotting situations as well. But more often repotting is this isn't working. This just isn't working. It's that sort of blah feeling where you just, it doesn't necessarily have to be anything dramatic. It doesn't have to be anything. It's just like, this really is a suboptimal life I'm leading, and I'd really like to lead my best life that I can within the confines. Yeah, you've got many people who've got commitments, either children, dependents, or older parents, or all sorts of commitments. I don't mean that you can, not everybody can rock off to California and sort of study for 2 years, but what you can do is find something within the confines of your own situation that nurture you. I don't care if it's 10 minutes a day meditating or praying or walking around the park or looking at the flowers, something that nurtures your soul. And maybe you'll find within that the courage to start off again and do something, to find a better life for yourself.
That's so true. And actually, you're talking about like the sort of the passion aspect. Yeah, it's very true, because I think a lot of people want to pursue their passions and do it like as their full-time job. So where is the sort of the line between sort of constructive pessimism, i.e. sort of being realistic, and also pursuing a passion?
Do you know what? The pursuing of the passion, it's an overused word in many ways, because people say, are you passionate about writing? I hate writing. It's awful. I think the wonderful Douglas Adams, Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, they say, how do you write? He said, it's dead easy. You put your bum on a seat and you sit there till your brain bleeds, and then something happens, something comes out. It's not, passion sounds as if, wouldn't we all love to have the passion like sort of, I don't know, I suppose a David Beckham, who all he ever wanted to do was play football. It would be great to have that. But most of us, the passion is, this is hard work. This is actually quite hard work. I love it when it's over. So I think it's kind of it's an overused word, passion. You sort of, it's something that you like to do and you love it. It's something that gives you fulfillment and meaning and joy when it's finished. But the awful thing about the word passion is it tends to disregard the very serious element of hard work. I mean, I don't see a ballerina or a dancer or a footballer who doesn't practice that a million times.
God.
So passion, it sounds as if, oh yes, I just love doing that. Yeah. Are you prepared to put the 20 hours in a day or 18 hours a day, 7 days a week that it takes to be good at this?
That's so true. That's so true. All the broken toes and bones and everything on top of that. Oh God, especially as a ballerina. My God. Yeah, that is intense.
And you're right. I do. I talk about constructive pessimism because we have to be realistic in life as well as to dream. Like, okay, everybody wants to be an influencer on Instagram. Everybody wants to be a millionaire, billionaire like the Kardashians. Mate, it's not gonna happen, right? They started off with millions and they made them into billions, and they had all the wherewithal to do it. So let's be realistic about what you can do. So maybe you're not going to be a prima ballerina at the Bolshoi, but maybe you'll be just a very good salsa teacher, at the local school. And that is terrific.
Yeah.
That's terrific.
Yeah.
So it's not to be depressed. And I call that constructive pessimism. I am not going to be a gold medal winner anytime soon in salsa. But I'm going to have a laugh with the people around me who are all about 30 and I'm nearly 70, who are just terrific kids, a young lawyer, a young doctor, somebody who's an IT specialist. They all come together. We all laugh with one another. That's the joy. The journey, not the destination, is find the joy there.
I'll wait for you on Strictly. Yes,
yeah, darling,
definitely.
you can. Yeah, it would definitely be one of those star turns where everybody votes you because you're so bad, and they just want to upset the judges that the least competent person is now top of the leaderboard.
Oh no, I feel like I have to actually see this in person. Definitely.
But you make a very valid point, Swati. Real hitting pay dirt is when you've got passion, purpose, and paycheck all in the one thing. If you can pursue what you really love in life and what you're good at and what you really love doing, and it tends to be what you're good at that you really love doing as well. Purpose, if it's something really useful that's worth doing, and you get paid for it. Those three things together, if you can find that in your life, purpose, passion, paycheck, that is brilliant. And it doesn't have to be sort of, as I say, Premier League footballer or prima ballerina in the Bolshoi or plasma physicist at the Joint European Tourist Nuclear Fusion Program. It doesn't have to be any of those things. It can be a really, really good parent, or a really good carer, or a really good road sweeper, or somebody who actually is very nice to you when they sort of check you out at Tesco. It can be any of those things. It can be any of those things. I mean, don't you notice that today? I mean, I was having some keys cut, and the bloke was so helpful and so good. That makes the difference. That's it.
Makes your day.
That makes my day. It makes his day, because actually he elicits from me a very positive response. And now we're in a much better world. So all of those things, which I think also is, we're on to another conversation entirely here now, which is at least do your best, especially nowadays, to be halfway decent to all the people with whom you interact. The bus driver, why not just say thank you as you get on the bus? Why not, even at my age, if I see a woman with a small child, stand up for her. A bit of sort of understanding that the wider community is probably going to help you in your daily life gain some purpose, to think that we're all in this alone together. We really are.
It's very true. It's so true. Gosh. And what do you do when, for example, you're a bystander and you see someone who needs repotting, and and because I feel like I've been in this situation before, especially with my partner, and and I feel like I was like, come on, you can do it. And
well, listen, I think you have to wait for people to show signs that they want to do it, because there's nothing worse than you telling people what they need to be doing, right? Certainly be there and be helpful and supportive when people reach out and want help. It's a little bit like, come on, we've all been there when we've got friends who come around and every other week there's a phone call. Oh, he's a bastard and I don't love him anyway, and he's awful, and he's coming home at 3 o'clock in the morning, and I don't know, and it goes on, and the same conversation, and the same, and what you want to say is give him a deadline, or tell him you're leaving, or whatever. Those types of conversations. Or people, I hate my job, my boss is a bully, I've not been promoted, other people less good than me are being promoted. Do you know what? Either give them a deadline or leave. There is binary, either improve the situation or get out. You can't say that to people unless don't give advice unless you're asked for it. That would be my advice. My unsolicited advice is don't give advice unless you're asked for it.
It's so hard.
It is. Well, especially if people say, what would you do? That's a different thing. What would I do is this, but I'm not in your situation. You know what I mean? So you've got to but I think we all hate those people who go around telling us what they think we should be doing. Do you know what would be good for you, Swati? If you did this and you did that, do you know what would be good for you? I think you should go and do, like, no, thank you very much indeed. You mind your stuff. When I want some advice, I will ask, but you'll know, you'll be under no illusion that I'm seeking your advice.
No, point taken, for sure. I have to be much more careful in that case. Oh God. Okay, and patient, clearly much more patient.
I mean, and that's your job as well, isn't it? Patience, fortitude, and understanding. Counsel comes later. It's no, we're all very good at giving advice, but it's best to wait till you're asked for it.
Oh, I know. Tell me about
And
it.
then only on the topics about which you're asked for it, not the entire. And we've all been guilty of doing the opposite. So you're not on your own there. We're not perfect. We're all just doing our best. But
Yes,
you know, back to
definitely.
repotting your life, the thing is, it's never over. It keeps
Mm,
on happening, you know, it keeps on going on. And we all are in different stages and seasons of our life. You know, I mean, I feel that it's time for another repot. It's time to do something slightly different now. You know, we've all been immured, locked up for 2 years.
yeah.
We've all sort of clambered out from the COVID stone to see the latest disaster happening. And it's a question of what do we do? How do we pivot now? What's the response to this? And give that a bit of thought. And as you get older,
Mm,
you know, or as you move through different stages of your life, there are stages of your life where what's totally important to you is getting on in that organogram and getting to the top of that career tree. That's what's important to you. When you've got children, that might be another issue. In a
yeah.
relationship, that's another issue. When you've got sick or elderly parents, that's another issue. When you've got all sorts of things change the dynamics. Everything is
Mm,
volatile. Everything keeps changing. So being nimble, being curious, reaching out to people, and seeing what's available and what other people are up to. Oh, that's interesting.
yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. Oh, that's interesting what you do. You couldn't help me. You know, could you tell me how to get into that then? Oh, I see they've got these. Oh, that would be helpful. I could help there then. You know, I
Mm.
heard somebody the other day on the radio, and instead of just wringing our hands about the Ukraine, she said, "Oh, I got onto Airbnb and I organized a weekend for myself in Kiev." You know, she paid for 2 nights in an Airbnb. Of course, she's not going to Kiev. She wanted to give that woman who had the Airbnb in Kiev.
Oh,
I thought that's what a brilliant way of
wow.
sending money to somebody
Wow.
directly. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I don't know why I keep going on to this. It's just that when I see a massive repotting of 2 million people,
Yeah, yeah. It's
it
so
puts one
relevant.
it puts one's own paltry melodrama into perspective, you know,
Yeah,
and you
100%.
have to think of other people.
Oh God.
I again, they're all repotting their lives, but in a way they never really wanted to. Whereas the rest
No.
of us, mostly the demographic to which I am speaking and reporting your life, it's you have agency to change your life if you so
Mm,
wish, and how to go about it. And the process is outlined in the book, one step after the next. You know, figure out where you're stuck, what's going on, be honest about it. Because a lot of the time we blame nebulous things when we don't actually hit the nail on the head. Are you really depressed, or is it that the job is driving you nuts?
yeah.
Do you hate your partner, or do you just hate the fact that he doesn't tell you where he is, for example? So be very
Yeah.
specific about what the issue is, sense where you are stuck, and then
Mm,
claim room to grow. You just say, look, this isn't working. I need room to grow. I need, and the tips and the tools that you need to do that. You know, you probably have assimilated a fantastic skill set already in your life. Maybe there are a few gaps in that. Well,
oh
fill
yeah.
those lacunae, identify what they are, and see what you need to do to move on, and then claim the room to grow. You know, that's it. Sense where you're stuck. You know, assimilate
This
the skill set that you need to move on, and claim room to grow, and just keep moving. Not forever and ever. You can, you know, there'll be times when you I think growing is sometimes doing nothing. People sometimes mistake what I'm
yeah.
saying for, oh, you've got to be working till the day you die. No. A very positive day is a day when you do absolutely nothing and you just sit and think and give yourself that space
Mm.
to just let things process sometimes. So,
Actually, yeah, you that does bring me on to that point, which is like I feel like in the past, especially like my mum's generation and stuff, they used to stay in the same spot for ages, and that would
mm,
be expected, as you said, like it was expected to be in a job for 20 years or something like
mm.
that. So how do we like is it okay, or how often should we pivot in that way? Because
Well,
obviously they've got that sort of old fashioned kind of ideology where, is it better to stay in one place and be dedicated to one thing, or
mhm,
is it okay to keep moving and
mm.
changing?
Okay, interesting. Two issues here. One, when I talk about repotting, it doesn't necessarily involve a physical journey from A to B. It doesn't involve moving horizontally. You don't have to go
Mm,
from London to California or London to Norwich.
mm,
You don't have to physically move anywhere. The journey is within yourself. It's vertical.
right.
It's within yourself. So you could actually sit in London in the same house and actually pivot, move, change, because actually your mindset has changed completely. The way you look at things has changed completely over a period of years. That, number one. What was the other issue you were talking about? Yes, in terms of my generation, my mother was in the WAF, you know, she was in the Women's Auxiliary Air Force.
Amazing.
That was the generation, you know, she joined up when she was 19. Can you imagine? And then sort of married my father, who was a sort of an immigrant Irish GP who came to England after the war when they were rolling out the NHS, and then sort of looked after my father's practice, and that's 4 children. So lots of repotting there. But it was the way her mind changed over a period of time, or her attitudes to life changed over time. So you can be doing something that looks completely banal. You can be in the same house. Oh, you look like a stuck in the mud. But no, your worldview is completely different. So, so the journey is not necessarily moving or doing anything. We go back to situations like doing the same job. Yes, once upon a time, you stayed in the same job for 50 years. And if you were very lucky, they gave you a clock at the end of it, or a nice Marquisite watch if you were a woman, and that was terrific. That's not the way nowadays. You don't have a job for life. Equally, and I would say this with relationships, whether they're intimate relationships or friendship relationships or any relationships. And here I use a sort of a horse race thing metaphor. Nobody wants to fall at the first hurdle, but when are you flogging a dead horse? Now, for example, if you're in a relationship, you know, the first time somebody sort of, I don't know, upsets you a little bit, or says a cross word, or, you know, lets you down a little bit, that's not really time for Krakatoa. But if it keeps happening, then we have to have a conversation. You know, you shouldn't just give up at the first obstacle. But now, if it's only obstacles, well, then I think you have to have a good look at whether this is working or not. The same obtains for a job, a situation, a country, a house, a relationship, anything you're doing. So we don't give up easily, but neither do we put up with nonsense.
Yeah, definitely.
No, I think the thing is most things have their lifespan, you know, sometimes even friendships, like, you know what, this isn't working anymore, or this job isn't working anymore, or this house isn't working anymore. You know, this setup isn't working anymore. This job that used to be terrific, it's now, it's not right for me anymore. And I think people, do you know what? The unconscious mind knows these things often before the conscious mind knows them. You know, the body expresses what the mind represses. If you're feeling down, if you're feeling you don't want to be doing things, have a good think, have that quiet time to think what it is that's making you feel like that.
Definitely. And, you know, this really brought me to that sort of that point you made about eliminating pests. Now, how do you do that? Because obviously there's been situations, I'm sure a lot of people have gone through this, when you have, say, close family members who are the pests. And, you know, if they are harmful to you, like, how do you eliminate them if, you know, it's hard, you know, especially when you've got a cultural aspect on top of that. It's really hard.
This is tough, isn't it? Because we say eliminate, we can't just bring in rent-a-kill in there. Those pesky sort of relations.
Those bugs,
No, but you do have to. This is a very serious issue. I mean, honestly, obviously, with people who aren't your family, you can just. It's not that you dump people who've upset you, you know, over a trivial thing. But if you find that people's effect on you is toxic and noxious, you owe it to yourself and your own mental and physical well-being to stop those relationships. You just have to. Now, more difficult with a family member, but you kind of, if somebody in the family can talk to them, or if they can be made to feel, sometimes, let's just spell this out. In matriarchal or patriarchal societies where older members of the family think they have every right to just tell everybody what's what, and younger members, and, you know, no, it can't go on like that. Either you find an ally in the family to talk to them, or you really have to protect yourself from being in situations with them, you know, like, and make it clear that this isn't working for me. Actually, that's something I've learned from the younger generation, you know, my own daughter. They will call you out on things like, don't speak to me like that. It's not fair that you speak to me like that. Or have you ever heard the way you speak to me? I think, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Actually, I'm a bit cheesed off about this, Swati, because when I was brought up, I wasn't allowed to take parents on, and now I'm older, I'm not allowed to say anything to my children. So
Oh
I feel
God.
that I'm the generation who was always told to shut up.
Oh, that's so unfortunate. You were right in the middle of
Right
these
in the
two
middle,
things.
right in
Yeah.
the middle of the parental system that was like, no, children should be seen and not heard. And now the system where, excuse me, we're the younger generation and we're not taking any nonsense from you people.
Oh God. Yeah, that means
Oh, no.
you need to also give as good as you
Give
get,
as good
you
as
know.
you get. But you know
Yeah.
what? It's not bad, because sometimes we go, simple. I mean, this will happen. It happens in business organograms, in companies. We see it with Mr. Putin, where nobody is gainsaying him. So big bully boy behavior
Yeah.
with a load of yes men around you. Nobody challenges you, and you get away with it. You keep doing
Yeah.
it. I mean, it happens in families
It
when nobody
does.
challenges, classically, the patriarch. And so he just gets away with saying and doing what he wants. And actually, if you're challenged, say, look, if you speak to me like that, I really don't want to see you. If you speak to me like that, I really don't want to converse with you. If you speak to me like that, I really don't want to come to dinner. If you speak to me like that, really, I don't want to see you at the weekend. Because I'm terribly sorry to say this, but it's affecting my my own mental health and well-being.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have to protect yourself from these things. And I know it's difficult, but
Yeah.
then you find an ally to help you do it.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. Yeah, that's very important. I think, yeah, in situations like that, you can get very isolated from your community if that happens. So
Yeah,
it's a quite challenging sort of constraint to have when you're
yeah,
repotting. Yeah,
yeah,
for sure.
yeah. And this is where maybe reaching out to people. I talked about those loose ties, loose ties in the network. I was just watching on the telly the other day, This Is Going to Hurt, which is this
Oh
fabulous, I
yeah,
don't know if you've
Adam
seen
K.
it,
Yeah.
Adam Kay, and he's a sort of a young gynecologist. And then I hadn't realized that there's a system in hospitals, if women are being abused, or in the hospital he was working in, you put little red stickers on your notes so that the nurse or the doctor involved can speak to you privately without the partner being there. And this was an issue in this program. And I thought, you know what, that's a very good, how very difficult it is in that situation. There's a pregnant woman, the husband's there all the time, but he's actually being abusive to her at home. How do you ever speak to anybody about it? Sometimes just reaching out. Okay, I'm now going into, again, really radical, seriously bad situations. But if you're in a familial situation where there is a member of the family who is dragging you down, you've got to seek allies, or they've got to be taken out on that. They've got to be called out, taken out. That's a radical. That's
Very
like Jane
radical.
Bond. No, we can't take them out. I mean, call them out on things.
As much as we would like to,
As
yes.
You're speaking with feeling there.
Okay, now, one of the big issues I find, especially when you're making that change, is fear. How do you stop doubt and fear sort of taking over the thought process?
Whenever you do anything, there's always fear and trepidation. There's fear in doing the same old thing again, and there's fear about doing something new. And I think the thing is, I mean, I'm no mathematician, but if you do a kind of a tally, the positives of doing this are, the negatives of staying as I am are, and you just do that list until the positives outweigh the negatives, and then you simply have to jump. It's a little bit like the first time you jump into a swimming pool. It's like, oh my God, no, you've just got to do it. So it's don't do it willy-nilly. It's like, make an informed decision. Do not leave one job and just a nice job and just go into another job, or just leave a relationship because somebody squeezed the toothpaste from the wrong end one morning. No, it's an informed decision, and you do as much as you can to reinforce your own confidence before you make the jump. Because, like, for example, if you've been out of the workforce for 10 years, like a lot of women who have children are, right, it's very frightening going back into the workforce. And maybe maybe the relationship is split up. You think, oh my God, yes. Well, help yourself by maybe doing a few courses, IT courses, secretarial courses, whatever. Shore up your skill set, shore up whatever it is that needs shoring up, whatever the lacunae are, whatever the gaps are that you can fill, whatever those are, whatever help you can. And in doing that, this is why the process is outlined in Repotting Your Life. by doing that, you reinforce its confidence building measures. You reinforce your confidence. You feel confidence to get back into the workforce, and then the positives on your tally will start to outweigh the negatives, and you will know that it's time to go now. It's time to push along.
Yeah.
You know, when things get when the negatives are so bad and the positives are so good, you will then say, yeah, I'd rather be on that side of the balance sheet now. I'm off.
Right.
Uproot. And it's a little bit like, oh my God, you know, uprooting. Like you just then pull up the roots and off you go.
Yeah.
I talk again as if it's physical. It doesn't have to be a physical movement.
No.
It doesn't have to be a movement from one country to the next. Or it's like, I could even draw the analogy of say you say I've got an issue with my weight. Say, for example, I can't fit into these trousers. It's driving me nuts. I'm wheezing every time I run for the bus and all the rest of it. I'm going to do something about it. The repotting there would be, do you know what? I can't live like this. It's not just it's just like I'm wheezing. I'm not feeling comfortable in my, you know, I'm not feeling comfortable when I fast, when I jog, when I run, or when I quicken my step. I'm not feeling comfortable in my clothes. I'm not feeling good about this. The repotting there would be, I make the decision that I'm going to change that. And it doesn't have to be radical. It's like, I'm not having a biscuit every time I have a cup of tea. I'm not having, you know, bun with my burger. I'm not having chips, you know, every day. I'm not doing these things. I'm not, you know, smoking 20 fags a day. I'm not having 4 beers a day. That would be the repotting. It wouldn't be I'm moving anywhere. It would be a decision. The positives of, I want to look good for my sister's wedding. I don't want to die at 50 because I want to see my grandchildren grow, and my children and my grandchildren. And you look at those positives and you think the negatives, you know, I'm squeezing into my trousers. I can't run for the bus. I feel shocking. I don't like looking at myself in the mirror. And eventually the positives, this positive vision of what it could be, outweigh the negative. And then the repotting will be, I have made a decision that I'm going to do something about my weight. That's it. It's not a physical movement. It's a mental movement.
Oh, definitely.
That's the repotting. That's the repotting phenomenon. That's it. And that's what a kind of, although I use the metaphor, it's that I'm taking this plant that's not doing very well in this pot, and that pot is the unhealthy eating pot, and I'm putting it in a healthy pot now, and it will flourish. So that's the movement, not necessarily geographical, not necessarily horizontal, not necessarily any of those things. It's within you that the repotting takes place.
Oh yeah, because that just reminded me of the fact that I stopped vaping after literally, like, I had been smoking for years. Then I went on to vaping, and I stopped vaping eventually because of COVID. My lung, I got COVID and I couldn't vape anymore, and I was like, actually I need to stop. So that was definitely one of those moments.
Well, there you go. It's like the aha, I can't go on like this. It can't go on like this. And that would be a repotting moment. You see what I mean? It doesn't have to be anything other than in your head, in your heart, in your soul, you knew it couldn't go on like that.
Definitely made a huge difference as well. So I was like, yes, that was a good thing to do. And but there's, you know, you were talking about failing fast, which I've always wanted to make sure I do correctly, because I feel like I hold on to things too long and they've already failed and I haven't noticed it. And so I was just wondering, when do you know when's the right time to call it a day?
Call it a day. Well, I used that metaphor before, didn't I? The racing analogy, like, don't fall at the first hurdle, but when are you flogging a dead horse? It's something that comes from startups in Silicon Valley. They iterate, you know, when they're trying to do something new, take something out of the ether, they iterate. So they like, let's give this up. No, it's not working. It's not that they just give up, fail fast. It's like, we've learned from this iteration. Right, let's keep on with that. We'll now, we've learned from that failure. Let's move it to the next iteration. It doesn't mean giving up. It's fail fast. It's like, don't keep flogging the old dead horse now. Learn from that and move on to the next iteration. Where have we gone wrong there? What went wrong there? It's that fail fast. You know, it's that fail fast.
Oh, I feel like I never notice it. I just never notice when it's happening. I'm just like, oh, all this stuff has happened. Oops, I've stayed with this for far too long. So.
Well, you know what? Don't beat yourself up. Give me an example of like the vaping and the smoking. Well, yeah, obviously.
Wow, that was a very big,
That
very
was a
long
very obvious
time.
one.
Yes.
That's a very obvious one. But we're talking about even trying to do positive things. Like I'm going to start in, it's going to be wonderful, this job or this relationship or whatever. Yeah. And then, yeah, fail fast. I'll tell you what happens as life goes on. Patterns, you start to recognize patterns. You start to recognize patterns in situations, in relationships, in jobs and everything. You think, I've seen this before. I've seen this pattern before. I recognize this pattern before. I recognize okay. So you probably make the same mistakes, but you clock them quicker and you get out of bad situations quicker. That, I think, is it.
That's
and in terms of trying to do something creative or get a business off the ground, that's what it is, a classic Silicon Valley expression for all these wonderful startups. Iterate. It's fail fast is like, okay, that's not working. It's not been a failure. We've learned a lot from that iteration. We'll take those learnings and we'll now iterate again, and we'll add to it these learnings, and we'll keep iterating till we've got an optimum solution. I'm talking about the creative process there.
Yeah. It's like bug fixes, isn't it? Every time. Yeah.
Keep moving till you've got the optimum solution.
Definitely. And I've actually got one more question, which I can't believe we've gotten through. I had like a million questions, so apologies. But
not at all. It's a joy talking to you.
Oh, thank you. I was just like, oh, I've got this, and oh, what about that? And this was like the one that really sort of stuck to me. It stuck with me because I was really surprised when you said you should retain old rituals that are still meaningful and offer kind of comfort to you when you repot something new. I was like, that's surprising.
Yeah, well, here's the thing. I mean, and I'm not necessarily talking about religious rituals or anything like that. It's things that are important to you, things that mean something to you. I mean, you have to mark why is it that in in world religions we mark big things? We mark the births of children, we mark marriages, we mark deaths, we mark, in Christian religion they'll mark baptisms, in other religions they'll bar mitzvahs and all the rest of it, because it's important to mark things. Now, why do we do so? That's in sort of classical religions, traditional religions. But for you, like, you have to give yourself sometimes a thank you to a thank you or a gratitude. I mean, the other day, it's a very helpful thing to do. I was feeling a bit down in the dumps. So I think, what good things have happened today? I think, oh, well, there was a very nice man at the key shop who helped me out. That was good. Oh, that's what happened. Somebody else was very nice there. And the big parcel arrived at the front door, and the bloke said, oh, well, I'll help you in with that. So then you start. So the ritual was, I have a little ritual of saying thank you about things. It's a gratitude ritual. So when you're feeling a bit down in the dumps and things are going wrong, and then you'll find there's a million things to say thank you for. Now, I'm a lapsed Catholic. I went to school in a convent, and so I mean, there's credit in the bank somewhere, but I've been left with all the guilt and none of the hope. But it's what I do still, oddly enough, I do say prayers. I say prayers. I don't know what being it's to, but I do say prayers. I say prayers of thanks, and I say prayers of please help, and prayers of if there's any bigger being, please sort this out.
Help.
Help.
Yeah.
It's calling upon the forces of the universe, please, to look benignly on whatever. So whatever those rituals are for you, and create your own, create your own little thank you ritual, your own gratitude ritual, your own please help ritual, or whatever it would be. Because I don't know, if for a million years organized religions have found succor in such things, I think perhaps individually we might do the same, and certainly it works for me.
Yeah, no, definitely. People have, so, and it has worked. So I see there is kind of some definitely benefit in doing that.
I think also in sort of traditional religions, and in tribes throughout the world, when people are going through liminal stages, like when you go from birth from being in utero to being a baby, that's a liminal stage. When you go from being a baby into adolescence, a liminal stage, adolescence into adulthood, another liminal stage, mother into woman into maternity, another liminal stage, death, another, these things are marked, otherwise nothing matters, does it? It's good to mark things. Why do we mark birthdays? Why do we mark these? It's good to mark things in order to give us an opportunity really to consider what's happening and to consider change, because these are all massive changes, the natural changes in life. And I think to show why we have ceremonies in traditional religions for these things is to show the individual going through this liminal stage, changing from like the child to the adolescent to the man or the woman, from the single person to the married person. We have these ceremonies to show people that the community understands the change and they're going to support them through that change. And I think that's why we have ceremonies. So if you constitute your own, I think it helps you go through, I think it helps you process stuff in a way that's beyond intellectual disaggregation, but it's certainly there at a spiritual level. I think it helps you. It may sound sort of slightly Pollyanna-ish, but sometimes to just say your thank yous and say your prayers to whomsoever is not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing. It helps you.
Do you know, I loved also what you wrote at the end, which is sort of ties into that, but it's with trees, just this kind of natural process of, just, it is a life cycle of basically trees helping each other in a network.
Well, there's been all this research done on trees. Trees talk to one another. Their root systems warn one another. Their branches reach out and actually sort of communicate with one another.
Amazing.
Old trees die, and there's like mother logs that like help feed the other logs that help feed the other trees. It's apart from fungi, which are an extraordinary, they're all helping one another and all communicating with one another. So I thought if trees are doing it, we should be doing it too. And apparently even within great big forests, there's an understanding between trees. They keep a certain sort of space between one another. They show one another respect and all the rest of it. A communication, they can show one another that there's danger coming, there's predators coming, there's a disease coming. It's an extraordinary network of things. So if trees are doing it, why not human beings? Reaching out to help one another, showing people a bit of respect and giving them a bit of space. But at the same time, when they reach out and look for help, why not? Why not help? It doesn't hurt you. So long as they're not being awkward and toxic like some of these family relations you're talking about.
Well, no, exactly.
It's a joke. No. Well, listen, there we are. So it's repotting your life, the process, the ongoing process, and helping people through times of change. And increasingly in a hugely volatile world where nothing stays the same, we're going to have to manage this increasingly frequently.
Yes, very much so. Everything has changed. Even in a few weeks, everything has changed.
Yeah, that's it.
Definitely.
So the flexibility, the curiosity, and the humility to start all over again, and the wherewithal, and that's really up to us to find it. And let's hope the institutions and the cultures and the countries in which we live find the cultures and the institutions to support us finding the mindset and the tools set and the skill set to help us navigate these the natural and the inexorable transitions of life.
Yeah, indeed. Well, gosh, Frances, we ended up on this very existential, very deep conversation on repotting, which is actually a very deep topic. So it affects everything. So yes, so thank you so much for discussing.
Thank you. It's been a joy for me and an honor for me and a privilege, because you've been through it yourself and you are absolutely an icon in this business. So it's not for me to tell you. You can tell everybody what it's all about. So thank you for this. Thank you for your time. It's been a great pleasure talking to you.
You too. Absolute pleasure. Love the book. Absolutely love the book. It's your voice. I can actually hear your voice as as it's written. So it's fantastic. And especially now I've spoken to you, it totally, I can hear it. I can hear your voice in the writing for sure.
Okay, well, thank you very much indeed. And I look forward to speaking to you again sometime. Okay.
Definitely.
Bye. Bye-bye. Good night.